turtles, heroes in a half shell. Turtle power. They're the world's most fearsome fighting team.
We're really hip.
They're heroes in the half shell, and they're green.
Hey, get a grip.
Oh, hello and welcome. We got another episode. Finally. Welcome to another episode of Sip Cinema, only on SCTV. Starring me and Simple Andrew, as usual.
Hello.
Welcome. Welcome to you. So yeah, it was a bit of a layoff for various reasons, including technical. But we're back stronger than ever with Conan the Barbarian, all the way from 1982. So
millions of subscribers might have thought we were dead.
yeah, that's right. Twitter was blowing up with rumors that we were on the submarine that went to see the Titanic. But we were not. We could afford the $250K, but we didn't go down there. So, anyway, Conan the Barbarian. We'll get into that soon, but first, as usual, let's have a look at what we're sipping on. Where's my camera? Okay. Bit of Wild Turkey Long Branch from Matthew McConaughey. Speaking of Hollywood, you might think a Hollywood-themed whiskey would be bad, but Long Branch is actually one of my favorite bourbons. It's not that expensive and it's really excellent, so highly recommended.
Delicious. Got myself a lager, James Squire, Shackles lager.
Okay. I don't think I've seen that bottle before. It's a nice pour. I don't think I've seen that version before of the shackles
Oh, okay.
with that blue label on the front.
Yeah.
Because I've heard of the James Squire shackles, but I don't think I've seen that specific one.
Okay. Yeah. Remember when we went to that to the Frankston the Waterside event, had the draft.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That was quite nice.
No, that
What's
was good. Yeah. Oh yeah, it's should be a good night. Good night
Oh,
of
you see,
sipping.
it looks like my Conan Pop is drowning in the beer,
Oh,
but he's actually behind the beer.
oh, Conan Pop. Okay, I wasn't
Yeah.
sure if you had a Conan Pop,
So,
but yeah.
yeah, Conan the Barbarian.
Oh, look at that.
You get some
He's even got the
details.
sword.
Got that talisman necklace.
Mm.
Yeah, it's got that sword. It's got
Yeah,
the
and
fur
the
boots.
Yeah. Yeah, well, speaking of Conan, we're going to get into this very traditional, well, somewhat traditional fantasy story. Of course, it's based on the comic series written by Robert E. Howard, who invented the character of Conan many decades ago as a comic. But Conan the Barbarian, released in 1982, was directed by John Milius. So he directed Red Dawn.
Oh, we got to cheers. We still have to
Oh, yeah, we
cheers.
have to cheers.
Do that.
It's been so long.
The traditional cheers. Cheers to Conan.
Cheers to Conan the Barbarian. It sort of introduced us in a way to the mythology of Arnold Schwarzenegger in terms of his physique and his screen presence, and it sort of appealed to us in terms of the swords and all the magic and the weird stuff. So here's to Conan.
Yeah, I was gonna say what stood out
Oh, yeah.
most for me for
Oh,
the
yeah,
Conan.
yeah. We're supposed to talk about like our impressions of it as kids. Okay, so okay, you can go first if you have something like you can say
Yeah.
about that.
Just got something short to say. Yeah, I feel like what stood out most was, it's always with any Arnie movie, it's probably Arnie himself. He's just a mountain, and this movie is his younger years, so could possibly be in his best shape. So, like, physically very impressive, and holding that sword and his stance. That's what I remember most, and I feel like this movie may have been what influenced my character choice in video games, RPGs, and stuff.
Yeah.
Choosing the barbarian class, or yeah. But what I didn't expect was there's like 50 Arnie sex scenes in here. Got all about that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we'll get to this for sure. But in terms of my like, I pretty much repeat what you said. Just to elaborate, this was 7 years after Arnold's last Mr. Olympia win, which was in 1975. So he did say in the past that he had to get rid of some of his muscle in order to act. Like he couldn't come in there the same shape as he was on the Olympia stage. But I think what struck me as a kid was that he didn't really look like any other action star at the time, or really ever, if you think about it. He sort of had this unique shape to him, primarily because of the bodybuilding, but also because of the way he spoke. And so, if you watch the movie, you'll notice that he doesn't really have that many words, doesn't really have that many lines, which is deliberate because his English wasn't that great back then. And sort of fit with the character to be this taciturn, man of few words, man of action type of character. So it's a very striking character, like you said, sort of attractive and relatable in terms of the video game concept. And like I said, the fantasy genre is actually something that we really enjoyed in video games back then as well. But whether it's something like Golden Axe or a TV show like He-Man, which is more of a sci-fi. It sort of took the
Yeah,
fantasy genre and made it sort of a
yeah,
sci-fi sort of theme,
like
but the
Diablo
action
and
figure was basically the same.
Diablo and Gauntlet. Remember Gauntlet?
Yeah, yeah,
And
I remember
old
Gauntlet.
stuff.
Yeah, Gauntlet is sort of the proto Diablo in a way.
Yeah.
Um, okay. So Conan, released in 1982, directed by John Milius, who directed Red Dawn. And also co-written by John Milius. So John Milius also wrote Apocalypse Now. And a third writer who was attributed to this film was Oliver Stone, one of the more accomplished directors in Hollywood history. So he directed films like Wall Street, Born on the 4th of July, JFK, Platoon, Natural Born Killers. So he had a really incredible career in Hollywood. Of course, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, James Earl Jones as the main villain, Doom, Thulsa Doom, I should say. Max von Sydow as the King Osric, and Sandel Bergman as Valeria. So it's funny how people say there's no strong character. There's never been strong female characters in movies. Well, we have one here. You know, Valeria is a pretty incredible character overall.
I
As
gotta
we'll
say,
see.
all the female actors in this movie, they look like they're like in crazy shape.
Yeah,
Like they all look like athletes.
even the witch.
Even the super hot witch.
Even the witch. Like the witch is like in ridiculous shape. Like I was like, wait, she could be like the Hansel and Gretel witch, but no, she's like a siren, you know. Anyway,
Or a succubus.
succubus, yeah, that's probably better. But so it starts off with a quote: "That which does not kill us makes us stronger," which is sort of the theme of the film. Arnold's character has to overcome incredible adversity and trauma in order to find himself in a way and to overcome the odds as the hero in his hero's journey. And so, fittingly, we get a lot of very primitive music over the credits, a lot of heavy drums. Um, One thing this movie does really well is get the tone and the feel of this particular genre really right. Like it's perfect in terms of the sound and the feel and the look of this type of film. It's not clean at all. Like actually it's very realistic in its depiction of different towns and the violence. Um, Although if you had to criticize the movie, you would criticize the action scenes. They're not very good, just to put it plainly. This is sort of one aspect of the film that I would like to see in terms of remake, if someone did remake it, to have really good action scenes and proper editing for the action scenes, so it essentially looks dynamic and violent and gory. Um, Otherwise, it sort of in this movie, it sort of looks like a stage play. In
There
some,
is the Jason Momoa Thor. I mean, not
have you
Thor.
seen that?
Conan. Yeah, I've seen that one.
How was it?
I can't remember much about it, but it didn't stand out very
Okay.
well. So
Yeah, now I'm
I
curious.
feel like they could have done something. Yeah, maybe I need to watch it again. It feels like it was probably when it just came out.
Yeah.
Mm.
So the first voice we actually hear is the voice of one of Conan's companions in the movie. So he becomes like a chronicler of Conan's life, because Conan sort of has this incredible life after the film ends and after Conan the Destroyer, of course, which was the sequel. And the narrator speaks of days of high adventure. And then we cut to the forging of Conan's sword, which sort of really sets the scene for what's to come, which we can see right now. Yeah, so speaking of strong women, like his mom was a badass as well, because that's what you had to be, if you're living in the wilds in the cold like that. Like everyone has to pitch in some way, and to become hardened by the environment. But you can hear from the music, for what I was describing in terms of how heavy the drums are, how sort of primal and primitive the feel is. It sort of sets the stage for what's to come really well, in terms of the genre of the film. They're not cutting corners. Like I keep repeating this because like Milius didn't cut any corners in terms of presenting like the comic in its sort of authentic, in the most authentic way possible.
Yeah, I feel the costumes and just the way that they were dressed. It looks convincing for that time period.
And so we get some mythology about the world. So young Conan is learning about Crumb. Basically, he's God. So he has a discussion with one of his companions later about his companion's God. And so you get the impression that different tribes, different groups of people have their own way of explaining the universe. In this case, it's Crumb. And then the history of Crumb is that the gods sort of messed with Crumb in a way and sort of led to Crumb destroying the giants but losing control of the secret of steel. And then men actually found the secret of steel in order to forge their weapons. And so Conan's father is saying that you can't trust anyone in the world other than steel. And so like Conan's sword becomes this important symbol of strength and protection and identity for the character throughout the film. And then we cut to glimpses of Thulsa Doom's men riding on their horses, interspersed with images of the village, just the villagers going about their business. And then we, in the village, there's lots of fantasy tropes like the blacksmith. But I guess if you wanted to make a comparison, you would compare it to the medieval times. Or if you play Skyrim, because Skyrim sort of reminded me of the villages in Skyrim a lot. And so we get a glimpse of this weird guy. He's a little guy with the tattoos on the rock. And he's sort of out of place compared to the villagers. So we get the impression that he's one of Doom's men and he's pretty dangerous. And then we cut to Doom's men just coming through and like murdering everybody. They're just like riding through, slicing down everybody they see. It's like really epic music. The music becomes even more epic than before. And Conan's dad, he's like going through, he's killing a bunch of people. But then Doom's men start setting fire to the village. And then eventually Conan's dad gets an axe in the back and he gets mauled by dogs in front of his son, which would be pretty traumatic.
Armored Rottweilers.
Yeah, armored Rottweilers, yeah. Yeah, because in Ghost of Tsushima, the Mongols use those fluffy black dogs. I don't know if you're aware of the fluffy Asian dogs, black dogs.
Is it the Tibetan?
I think so. That sort of reminded me of that.
Not a mastiff. Not mastiff.
But China's a Chinese breed.
it's like really massive and the fur is long.
The Chow Chow.
Oh, Chow Chow. Oh, it's a small dog.
Is it? No, they're not small dogs. They were used by the Mongols to like attack people.
Okay, Chow Chows. So they're like cute little medium-sized dogs.
I guess there's different versions. I guess they are small now, but back in the day they were bred as attack dogs.
Mm.
Wait, let me just get this because this is important. Yeah. So the only reason I'm talking about this is because every sort of region, every country, I guess, or group of people had their own fighting dogs or fighting animals. And so in Ghost of Tsushima, the Mongols, which are descended from China, had these dogs as attack dogs. They look more like this. They look far more vicious in the game, trust me.
So what's it got to do with Conan?
Because you mentioned the
Oh yeah,
armored
making the comparison with
yeah,
the
so the comparison.
Rottweiler dogs.
I'm saying that different groups of people would have their own attack animals.
I guess it depends on which continent you're from and what dog is which dog is from.
Yeah, which dogs are you have?
Like Mexico would be Chihuahuas.
Chihuahuas, like 40,000 Chihuahuas. Yeah. So eventually the battle is over. Thulsa Doom's men basically just destroy everything, destroy everybody, and they all sort of take off their helmets. And it's just Conan's mum standing in their way. And you can tell that she's going to go down with the fight. Like she's not going to just give up. And then this particular scene is sort of played out incredibly slowly for a reason. Like we see close-ups of Thulsa Doom, and you get the impression that he's used to sort of hypnotizing people. Like he the way he tilts his head, the way the camera like focuses on his eyes. There's something strange about his look. And so Thulsa Doom sort of walks up and takes the sword from somebody else, and it's the sword that Conan's father was wielding. And so there's symbolism in terms of Thulsa Doom using Conan's father's sword to execute his mom. But up to this stage in the story, like there's no dialogue so far, which is sort of characteristic of Milius's sort of directorial choices in this film. It's more of a visual movie with different audio cues other than dialogue. And so further to the point of Doom using hypnosis, he sort of just looks at Conan's mum in a certain way, and then she puts down the sword, which allows him to sort of take his time to basically behead Conan's mom right in front of him.
Yeah, Thulsa Doom's got this Rick James look going.
Rick James,
straightened hair.
Yeah, he does. Yeah. So he's got very straight. Yeah. So it's James Earl Jones. So it's black, but it's got very, very straight hair, very long, very straight hair, which is not what you would expect from this type of character. And so this scene is actually filmed really interestingly. So this scene is actually really striking when I was a kid as well, where the camera focuses on Conan as a little boy, and he's holding his mom's hand, and then when she gets beheaded, you just see the head fall down in front of him, and then the body sort of fall to the side as it lets go of as the boy Conan's hand, and then Conan the boy sort of looks at his hand in disbelief, like what just happened. he just stares at his empty hand. And then Thulsa Doom sort of looks down at Conan and then walks away. And so we see the Thulsa Doom and his men have sort of captured all the children, and they're going to march to the north, to the Wheel of Pain. And so you get the impression that a bunch of kids probably died along the way, because they're not exactly treating the kids like kids. Like the kids have to march, through snow, probably starving. They sort of have to push through the pain, basically, and there's probably kids that didn't make it all the way through. But of course, Conan did, and he gets to push the Wheel of Pain. Yeah, so in a way, the Wheel of Pain becomes like a transformative process for young Conan, sort of a coming of age moment for the character, where he's no longer a boy; he's a man. Like he's this big, strong man. And so, as a kid, I was sort of intrigued by that notion of pushing the Wheel of Pain and then becoming like this. Getting into really good shape as an adult, like that. That's sort of what I was focused
Yeah,
on.
you'd be crazy strong.
Yeah,
Yeah, as long as you're eating well.
yeah. I mean, that's the key, isn't it? But,
So the Wheel of Pain, it's a mill, yeah, like a grain mill.
yeah, it's a grain mill.
It's not just like a torture device
No,
or
so there's a
punishment.
purpose for it. It's basically slave labor, so they're all slaves, of course. Because at the end of the Wheel of Pain scene, you see Conan getting sold off to another guy. And so he was bought by this other guy because the other guy wanted Conan to fight for him.
Red hair.
Yeah, the guy with the red hair, yeah. Because Conan's a big guy, so it's like you should come fight. It's like getting like fighting dogs, basically. So who knows who is going to fight, like slaves, or just like really violent people, murderers and stuff, would become fighters in this particular sport. So it's like really extreme UFC, basically. It's like anything goes. Like the first guy fights, like he's got really sharp teeth and it's like biting the crap out of Conan's neck. And there's like blood everywhere. And it's like one of the more brutal fights I think, in any movie, really, if you think about it. Like in terms of the savagery of the fight. And so we get this really cool montage of other fights that Conan was involved in. And you get the impression that he wins like a lot. Like he beats a lot of guys. Like he kills a lot of guys because you see him stabbing guys.
I assume that all the fights are to the death. So
Yeah, basically.
he didn't lose.
He didn't lose, which means he didn't die. And you sort of see him like, there's a really cool montage of him doing this.
Yeah, it's like
really cool.
He uses this pit fighting to improve his fighting ability. Because
yeah,
I don't know. I assume he must have had some like minor training with his father when he was young.
Yeah,
but it's a lot of time to live pushing the Wheel of Pain and not honing your skills for so long. So you can see through the pit fighting tournaments, he becomes more proficient, and he kills, I guess, without getting hurt. Like he just becomes really sufficient at killing.
Yeah, except for the first fight where he
Sufficient
gets
or efficient?
efficient. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't get really hurt except the first fight where he gets
Yeah.
bitten. He's good as because if yeah, because it could have really killed him, like ripped out his jugular vein or something.
Yeah.
But he survived. Um, and so the fighting not only allows him to get better at fighting, but it elevates his position in life, and it sort of gives him a reason to live, basically. And he becomes addicted to the adulation and the respect that he's earned as one of the best pit fighters. And so he's taken to the east to learn better fighting techniques, including fighting with the sword. And so we get, like a short montage of him like practicing with the sword as well. And he also learned to read and write. I like this line from the narrator. He says, he was also bred to the finest stock. So, and he's sort of seen with the woman, like he's sort of still kept like a slave in this room, but like it's got all the comforts he'll ever need, like all the food, all the wine, comfortable bed, like blankets and stuff, and then they bring him women to breed with, basically.
I assume it's other slave women to make more slave babies.
Primarily, yeah, basically, yeah. But the narrator also says, above all, it was the discipline of steel that he was learning as well. And I wrote in my notes that in the East, where he was at this time, the people around him sort of reminded me of the Mongols. I'm seeing a lot of Mongols in Ghost of Tsushima that I'm playing. So
no, there definitely seem to be quite a lot of Asian influence in some of the towns and villages and stuff.
Yeah,
I think it's a city, mostly a city.
Yeah. And so we get this cool scene. Someone asks him what's best in life.
Good. But what is best in life?
Falcons at your breast, the wind in your hair.
Wrong!
To crush your enemies, see them driven before you, and to hear the lamentation of their women.
That
Yeah, that's sort of becomes one of the more famous lines in the movie. Crush your enemies to the run before you hear the lamentations of the women.
His English was fine there.
Yeah. I mean, it's 3 short sentences. So. But lamentations isn't the easiest word. So, yeah. And so during that night, the redhead guy, he frees Conan. Like he breaks his chain. It's like, you're free. Go, get out of here. Do you figure out why he was freed?
I feel like red hair made a lot of profit off him, and I feel like he earned his freedom that way. That's the impression I got.
Yeah, same. Yeah, yeah. It's like he earned it, like he deserved to be free. Otherwise, there might be some, backdoor dealings with other people, other rival, groups of people that might be after Conan for some reason, and so he freed him for that reason. But the movie doesn't really go into it.
No, it doesn't explain it really.
So the next day, Conan's being pursued by wild dogs because he's just literally out in the wild by himself.
Yeah, he's got no direction now since he's not a pit fighter.
Yeah, it's in a way it's sort of a worse position because there's no protection anymore. Like there's no comfortable bed, there's no regular food, there's no women to breed with. And so while he's being pursued by wild dogs, he falls into a cave. It's a pretty rough fall, actually. But then the cave is actually a tomb for an ancient king, which is pretty cool. So this is the type of thing that happens in games. stumble upon a cave, and then like there's a ancient structure
It's
or
a rare loot,
rare loot. Yeah, exactly. He gets
legendary sword.
Yeah, he gets a legendary sword. Yeah, has a conversation with the skeleton. And so Conan takes the sword from the king's skeletal grasp. And then, like, you were supposed to remember Conan's father's words about trusting the steel. And so to Conan, he sort of sees this as a sign. Like, he discovers the steel, discovers his god in a way, like this physical representation of Crumb. And so Conan sort of ceremoniously like knocks all the debris, ancient debris, off the sword, and then the crown falls from the dead king's head, really dramatically. And then Conan turns around and says, "Crumb," and so automatically the audience understands that this is some sort of divine intervention for him. This chance, encounter with this ancient king and the steel. And so Conan climbs out of the cave, cuts his chains. And so you get the impression he can finally defend himself in the wild, because the dogs come back, but he sort of goes after them. We don't see him destroy the dogs, but you get the impression that, he was able to defend himself in a way. And so Conan arrives at the witch's house, the witch that we mentioned before. And so, but she's not a witch yet, because the woman's like, come into my house. I've got warmth and fire, And she like crawls around on all fours in front of the fire, and then throws something in the fire, and there's like ghosts and spirits start like flying everywhere. But Conan's like, he doesn't know what's going on, so he just stays. And then she's like, "Oh, I knew you would come, a conqueror." And then she says something about snakes. I can't remember what she said, but and then at the mention of snakes, it's like, what are you talking about? I'm looking for two snakes coming together like this, he says, which is the sign of the Ouroboros, the snakes eating each other. And then she mentions black sun, black moon. And then while like he's making love to her, she starts chanting incantations and starts transforming into a demon. So this is a really good example of special effects in this scene. In terms of her transformation, it's sort of terrifying. If you're a kid, it's kind of terrifying. But it was sort of really well done. I think most of the special effects in this film were really well done. Like I said, I think the fight scenes could have been better. But in terms of the special effects, creating this fantasy scenario was actually really well done for the time.
Yeah, definitely for the time.
Because back then they had to sort of problem solve, right? They didn't have CGI, so they problem solved. So the room turns blue. She has this transformation. You got all these sounds. And then Conan like picks her up and throws her into the fire.
This ragdolls her.
Yeah.
Tosses her in the fires.
Yeah, tosses her like a doll, basically.
Ragdolls her.
And then she turns into this beams of light and then flies out with a scream. That was also really well done. Like, that's a pretty simple piece of special effects, but it's done really well because the light sort of flashes around in the room. And then you get this blood-curdling scream as well. And then he says crumb after he sees that.
Yeah, it's like when he says that, it's like he knows that it's like fateful encounters, like it's meant to happen. Like he's on the right path.
And so he encounters his first companion, Subutai. Subutai asks him for food. It says something like, "I want to die in combat, not hunger." and it's Subutai. He's a thief and an archer, and they enjoy some rabbit. I think it's rabbit and chicken by the fire.
So was he just chained up to die, like on some rock or something?
Chained up, I think so. I think it was chained up.
I think it
'cause he
was. And he
just
gets
sitting by the
free.
rock, sort of doing nothing. You sort of get the impression that he was there for a while. And so he probably would have spoken to anybody who came past. But he sort of saw Conan walk by. He sort of sprang up and was like, "Hey." But we can see what they're eating here.
What gods do you pray to?
I pray to the four winds. And you?
He's strong. If I die, I have to go before him. And he will ask me, what is the riddle of steel? If I don't know it, he will cast me out of Valhalla and laugh at me.
Yeah, so I know they're talking about like deep philosophical ideas about gods and the meaning of life, but as a kid, I was sort of 1000% focused on what they were eating. Like, I just wanted to eat like meat like that, like just like rip chunks of flesh and just eat it. Like there was something
Sink your teeth into
about
it.
that.
Mm.
Yeah, like I do that all the time now, but as a kid, that's not how we ate. Like, I don't think we ate that much as kids. So I was like, well, that's incredible. Like, how do you get to do that? So, did you have the same impression or reaction to that?
Not recently when I watched it again, but I don't know if it's this movie, but other movies, I feel there's scenes where they're eating and
Yeah.
but I didn't get that impression from this scene.
Okay.
Like I didn't get that flashback feeling.
Yeah, I definitely did.
Yeah.
Like so many, like I've eaten chunks, eaten exactly like that, like 3 days ago. And so it's a common thing when you're an adult. But when you're a kid, you're sort of dependent on everybody else to give you food. And so to see Arnold and Sabotage like just gorging on chunks of meat, it was sort of mind blowing for me for some reason. Maybe I was a hungry kid. Maybe that's what it means.
No, we were fed pretty well.
Yeah, I guess we both ended up 6'2", so we had to be eating something to get that tall. So, and so Sabotage is talking about his God is the everlasting sky, whereas Conan's talking about Crumb, his God lives in Valhalla, and he's got the this thing about steel, and so there's sort of Conan's sort of looking down on Sabotage's God. Like he's just the sky, it's just the wind. Like there's nothing powerful about that. So they have this short debate, and then we cut to a montage of them running across the steppe, which is basically just a wide, flat area of land. Really interesting sort of geography in this montage. And interesting having them running, just constantly running across the landscape.
It's just like in like Skyrim. No one walks anywhere.
Yeah.
If you don't have a mount, you're running everywhere. Build up your stamina.
Yeah, Doc was talking about Morrowind. How there's no fast travel points. So you had to literally walk wherever you wanted to go. But I played Morrowind in Oblivion. Well, I don't remember that much of it in terms of the travel, because I think Skyrim was the first game
Oblivion
that I played.
had fast travel.
Oblivion had
sure.
fast travel. Okay. Because
Yeah,
I
but
wasn't sure.
no, the
But if
previous
we
one,
play
Elder
Morrowind
Scrolls
without
didn't.
fast travel,
Yeah,
like,
Morrowind didn't have fast travel, I don't think.
that's because we
Actually, I
didn't know what
feel
fast travel was.
maybe that was it.
So if you don't know what it is, that level of convenience, then you don't worry about it. Like you just run across the land. And some people, I've heard some people play The Witcher like that. Like you play Witcher 3, but you don't do fast travel, and it's
Right.
more immersive. I've heard people do that. So, um, and so they sort of arrive at a town, sort of this civilization, and it's ancient and wicked. Um, and the town is full of people and animals, and also stinks. I like how people comment on the smell of different things in this movie, which is true. Like that, these places would absolutely stink. And they go to another town, and Conan's asking people about the Ouroboros. And
Oh,
then one guy, yep,
there was a eating scene in this. I noticed when I watched it again. The eating skewers.
yeah, oh yeah,
They
with the
gone to the town like it's like I don't know what it was, but it looked like some kind of little creepy crawly, some creatures on it. I don't
like a
know.
lizard or something.
I think so. Yeah, it could be a newt or
Yeah,
something.
yeah,
Yeah, that was cool.
yeah,
I
nice
noticed that.
little details. Hmm. And the one guy tells him about a cult with snakes who murder people in the night. But then later on, you get that famous scene of Conan punching the camel. Like he's drunk and punches the camel. The camel like
Actually,
goes down.
punches the camel too.
Yeah, the camel like goes down, like it's knocked out, and then everything goes quiet. And it's like, oh, we got to get out of here. And then on their way out of town, the tower. Someone mentions the Tower of the Serpent, and so that's their next destination. And so at the Tower of the Serpent, they come across a Valeria, who's also there to like plunder the tower. So
Yeah,
she's
that's a funny scene.
yeah, because she's like suspicious of them, but then they soon realize they're there for exactly the same reason, and so they team up. Yeah, but that's the thing that happens in these types of stories. You sort of meet other characters and you go on adventures. And so they decide to climb the wall. And so Valeria has a catchphrase. So she keeps repeating in the movie, "Do you want to live forever?"
Yeah, that stood out. Do you remember what other movie has that?
It's on the edge of my memory. What movie was it?
It was Starship Troopers.
Oh, Starship Troopers. Oh,
Yeah,
yeah. Thanks for
Rico.
reminding me. I've got to put
Yeah.
that. We're going to do that after Point Break. So I'll make a note of that. Again, this reference to smell. Someone mentions the Tower of Snakes really stinks, which makes sense. Like it's a Tower of Snakes and probably corpses, and probably no one showers. No one showers in this era.
No one showers. There's no plumbing. Animals
Yeah.
defecate on the streets everywhere
Mm.
with people. Yeah, there's no plumbing.
Yeah, even the ancient Romans had some sort of plumbing. The rope, so they sort of take a rope down through the Tower of Snakes, and we see there's some sort of ritual going on, some weird ritual. And there's a woman in robes, like holding candles, a bunch of women. And then Valeria says people think Doom is like 1,000 years old. So we're sort of building on the mythology of Thulsa Doom as this ancient, mystical, magical person. And so Conan and Subutai, they go into the snake pit, like the main snake pit. and then Valeria like scouts above, and like she steals a robe from one of the women. And so Conan goes into the snake pit to steal one of the jewels, like the big red jewel. But above, one of the women's being prepared for sacrifice. So in this movie, there's a lot of women being sacrificed because of the cult of, Tulsa Doom's cult, basically. So Conan, he like takes the jewel. But then when he turns around after taking the jewel, like the number one, the giant snake like wakes up. But number two, he sees the Ouroboros snake symbol of Thulsa Doom. And so he's shocked. He's like, whoa, this is like probably the place where Thulsa Doom's like hanging out. But then it's like attacked by the giant snake. And so the giant snake fight is pretty awesome. Yeah, I thought that scene is pretty well done in terms of the special effects as well.
Oh yeah, special effects was decent at the time. I thought it was a massive snake. I thought it was definitely anaconda. It was a real snake that they had to kill.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that would have been pretty tough if they actually had a real snake. Like, I think some people would have died in the production if they actually had a real anaconda that big. But yeah, so as we saw, Sabotai like shoots arrows into its head, and then Conan like chops its head off. And then we cut to the woman being sacrificed. So she like falls into the snake pit, but the snake is dead. And so she starts screaming, and everyone starts running. And then Valeria,
don't know how she didn't break a neck from that fall.
Yeah,
break her legs, break something. She's like naked, dropping down, and she just like protected herself on the fall or something. And she's fine.
And so Valeria like jumps into the water. I think she says, "Do you want to live forever again?" before she like jumps into the water from the top of the snake tower.
Yeah, that's right.
And then later on that night, Conan and Valeria are like playing with the jewels. And they can like they're rich, basically rich now, or temporarily rich. And so they can rent a room, so they can like get to know each other a little better. If you catch my drift. But they're kind of so as I said, they're kind of rich. So they're like living the high life in the taverns, like eating and drinking, basically whatever they want. Like,
they fall in love as well.
Yeah. We can't not mention that they actually do. Like this is actually like a legitimate romance between Conan and Valeria in this film. That sort of reaches its peak when Conan dies. Spoiler alert, which we'll get to later.
Conan dies.
We'll get to that later. I don't know if it's obvious, but that's my theory about that particular scene, which we'll talk about later. But and so there's like mayhem in the tavern because they're partying way too much. But then like a bunch of guys come up. It's like, hey, we need to take you to the hall of King Osric. And the narrator calls him King Osric the Usurper, who used to be someone just like Conan, this powerful Northman. And they're like, who's with you? And Valeria's like, it's just me and Conan. But then they've caught Subutai as well. And then Osric's like, by the way, like snake towers are popping up everywhere, like this snake cult. They're out of control. And and he shows him the fangs of this serpent dagger that's used by a son to murder a father. And then he talks about how his daughter's like being hypnotized by Thulsa Doom. Like she's like Doom's number one chick, basically. And so Osric's like, you better rescue my daughter from Doom. And then he's like, I'll offer you riches beyond your imagining. And so they go back and talk about it, and Valeria's like, it's too dangerous. We could just like take our riches, like what we got, and just like live comfortably. But Conan's like, no, I've got like a personal vendetta. I need to avenge my father and like avenge my family. Basically, like Valeria's happy just to live how they're living now, but Conan's like, no, I've got a like a blood pact, basically. And so the next morning, Conan like just leaves on his own, and he leaves behind the jewel for Valeria. And so he meets different people along the way, and then he sort of encounters the children of Doom, who are like the followers of the snake cult, basically. I mean, basically, the children of Doom are just a bunch of hippies, in like these white robes, and they tell Conan like, throw down your weapons. And then Conan goes to this rock formation with ancient ruins and skeletons. This is sort of ancient battle site, basically, and he meets the narrator, the wizard. Wait, let me get his name. Mako the wizard. Who ends up being the narrator of the movie. Now the wizard tries to be really tough, but they end up just laughing about what he was saying. So, and the wizard tells him of the time of the Titans, and the wizard sings to the dead in that ancient structure. But then the wizard's like, but no one bothers me around here, not even Thulsa Doom. So he can just like walk around like however he wants. And so Conan like gets a camel and is like riding through the village with flowers. And then a bunch of weird hippie stuff is going on. Because the village is run by the children of Doom. And so a bunch of hippies around, they're like putting their arms in the air and like doing drugs, probably. And then the next morning, Conan like sleeping on the ground. He wakes up, and a bunch of followers gather around to get the robes from the priests. and then this is like one of the weirdest scenes in the entire movie. It's just this random scene out of nowhere. This creepy, like
it was creepy.
This creepy faggy priest like comes up to him. Like, it's hard to describe, so you just have to see it.
I'm afraid.
Afraid? To bare yourself? Why? How do you expect to reach emptiness without knowing your own body?
I'm afraid and I'm shy. This is your rope. Priest's rope.
I thought that was really well done, even though it was really creepy. Like the guy's breathing starts to get more and more ragged, like as the scene goes on. Like his mouth just stays open, like it was so random and weird. It was pretty funny. It sort of reflects like the cultish nature of the snake cult. Like everyone's like weird and doing weird stuff to each other. So you can see a great shot of everybody like walking up the hill, like to the snake tower, and there's like hundreds and hundreds of people, hundreds of extras winding around this road up to the snake tower. It's really, really nice scene. And so there's a pool that people look in to like scry visions and stuff. So Conan sees infinity in the pool leading up to the snake tower. And so this particular scene is actually pretty long and drawn out. So Milius sort of focuses on the cultish nature of the people involved in the snake cult. Sort of really has these slow shots of everybody like moving around, walking, or just standing about. So the scene goes on for longer than you would expect. That's my point. And so once the ritual begins, the next woman to be sacrificed comes out to greet everyone with snakes around her wrists. But Thulsa Doom's there too. Like, he's up there, he's talking. He's saying he's watched them for 1,000 years. But then Conan's like, he's wearing the creepy priest robes and he's just hanging around. But then a couple of the guards, like, they know Conan's like not the real guy. Like, he's not a real.
He's too big to be a priest.
Yeah.
Too muscly.
He doesn't look like he's. He doesn't look like any of the other hippies. Let's put it that way. And then like the guards catch him and everyone starts saying infidel, infidel. And so the guards like carrying him across the field. And the snake girl comes out and we notice that it's Osric's daughter is like the snake girl. So it's not the next sacrifice. It's just the main snake girl is Osric's daughter. And so Conan's being tortured by the fountain, like he's getting beaten up. And then Doom wants to come out and interrogate him.
He raised that snake from the time it was born. Steel isn't strong, boy. Flesh is stronger. Come to me, my child. And that is strength, boy. That is power. Contemplate this on the tree of woe.
Yeah, so we can actually talk about James Earl Jones and his performance in this film, which is incredible. So it's sort of like the perfect actor for this role, especially in terms of his voice. Like, he's got the perfect voice. He's got the perfect sort of presence on the screen. Like, he seems bigger than everybody else in terms of his personality and charisma. So you sort of believe that people would follow him, and that he has this magical mythology about him. And so James Earl Jones was one of the best aspects of the entire film. And so we see Doom sort of contradicting Crumb, Conan's god, in terms of the steel. So Doom says the flesh is stronger than the steel because the flesh has power through control and fear, which is what Doom does to his followers, basically. And so Doom interrogates him. We get this funny scene as well of the snake handler being really upset about Conan killing the giant snake. So you get the impression that Doom sort of sees everything. So, Valeria, Conan, and Saboteur, they thought they got away with it, but Doom probably knew who they were, like what they were doing anyway. And then Conan's like, you killed my family. And then Doom's like, I don't remember killing a family. Like, I've killed so many families before. Like, how am I supposed to remember that? Yeah, so like we saw in the clip, Doom waves at this girl and she just falls to her death. And then Doom mentions something interesting. So Doom's like, without me, you wouldn't have the power that you have now, which is a common theme that keeps coming up throughout the movie whenever Doom confronts Conan, especially at the end. He's saying, you wouldn't be who you are now if it wasn't for me. And so he sort of adopts this weird sort of abusive father type of role for Conan. And so as we saw also at the end of that clip, he said, you're going to be strung up on the tree Wait, what did he say?
The tree of woe.
The tree of woe, which is really
Yeah.
cool. So basically, he's going to be crucified, which is the same thing. It's just call it the tree of woe. And so we get this really awesome scene of Conan hanging on the tree, all bloodied up. It's a really cool tree as well. And so he gets woken up by this pesky vulture who tries to eat him. So another great scene. You could tell, I think it might have been like a plush toy or something for the vulture, but I thought the editing was good enough that you sort of believe that it bit into the neck of the vulture and then started choking, which is
It's
what
like a vulture Muppet.
Yeah, exactly, a vulture Muppet. But yeah, I mean that's exactly what would happen. Like if you're biting through the neck of a vulture, you probably start vomiting as well after you do that. So, plus he's probably dehydrated. It's probably got no saliva to process what's in his mouth to spit it out or whatever. So it makes it even worse.
The feathers will do that to you.
Yeah, the feathers. Yeah.
Dry your mouth out.
Yeah, that's true. So the next day, sort of, he survives through the night. So we get this montage of time passing through the night. The next day, he sees someone coming. What the hell? He sees someone coming across the land, and he starts laughing. But then the guy comes back into view, and it's Sabotai. It's Sabotai and Valeria, basically, and they've come to nurse him back to health. And so she asks the wizard if the gods owe him any favors, because there is a ritual. Now, so I said before that Conan died, and you were like, what? What are you talking about?
Oh, yeah. So he was
I reckon
cursed.
Conan died in this scene, which is why the magic was so strong to bring Conan back. So in a way, Valeria gave up her life in order to save Conan's life, because she dies later from the poison arrow.
Maybe it explains it more thoroughly in the comic.
Yeah. So what was your impression? Did you think he survived the Tree of Woe?
Yeah, I assumed that he survived him. When they brought him back, the wizard said that he's being cursed. So, like you said, it makes sense that Valeria may have given up her life so that he would live, so that the ritual could succeed in destroying the demons or whatever. Or whatever was possessing him or cursing him. So yeah, I never thought of it that way. I just assumed that he was just cursed, and that was the ritual to rid it from him.
I should look up really how long you would survive a crucifixion, because I don't really know. I think that would be interesting to decide, because he was, if you think about it, he was on the on the Tree of Woe for at least maybe 16 hours, if not 24 hours.
I think it's if you don't have water for 3 days, then you die.
Yeah, but then there's other factors when it comes to crucifixion, like the arms being above the head, constantly, restricts blood flow. So there's different factors that will speed up your death, basically. I mentioned eating raw vultures. But then the wizard's there'll be a heavy toll if he performs this ritual for Conan from Valeria. Cat's running wild. And so at night the ritual is performed, and Conan is wrapped in cloth and adorned Like there's a bunch of ancient runic symbols like drawn onto his face, all over his body, really. Which actually looks really cool in the film. And then we get like this gigantic storm out of nowhere, and the spirits like lift up Conan as Valeria tries to fight them off. So the point of the ritual is to fight off the spirits as they're trying to sort of kill Conan in a way, whatever kill means, whether to take his soul or to literally kill him. And so Valeria has to fight them off. And so eventually the storm calms and the spirits are gone. And then the next day, Conan wakes up. And we get a really cool scene. Another cool scene of Conan like wielding his sword, which is pretty cool. I guess, it sort of appears in a lot of different, clips of Conan the Barbarian. Is Conan like swinging the sword around, which we'll see.
All the gods, they cannot sever us. If I were dead and you still fighting for life, I'd come back from the darkness, back from the pit of hell, to fight at your side.
Yeah, so him swinging the sword after sort of facing certain death, like that, I think that represents his faith in the steel, his faith in Crumb, and how the steel is what would protect him in the future. So he sort of has his power back in a way because he's swinging the steel. And so later that night, over a campfire, Subutai says they can get into the mountain of power through the back, but it's a really risky move. But they have no choice, basically. So they ride out. And then they're like painted. They got like camouflage, really cool camouflage.
I like this infiltration mission.
Yeah.
This scene is a cool scene.
Yeah, like the way Valeria moves, like all stealth.
Yeah, where they go in and infiltrate and escape, and as well done.
Yeah, and the use of color as well. Like the first area sort of lit, it's all red.
Yeah, all red. It's like what was that? The meaning you said of red in the scenes in Predator and.
Yeah.
What was the other movie recently? There's another red scene. It was also kind of like a depiction of like going into hell.
Yeah, you mentioned the hell in that other movie, which I can't recall, but
it's Predator, and it was another movie that we streamed.
Definitely not Top Gun.
Not Beetlejuice.
But this scene sort of looked like ancient medieval painting depictions of hell, where you had like corpses and body parts and like corpses like hung on hooks and all kinds of crazy stuff happening. Really gruesome, like gory, like depictions of dead bodies and stuff in this scene. Because it's like a work area. Like people are working with their dismembered bodies. Like processing them. I think they're processing them to eat.
You see like further on in the scene that humongous gold pauldron of that green liquid.
Yeah.
And like there's body parts and bones and stuff in it.
And the woman like takes a bowl and starts eating the hand. Yeah, that was funny. And so they make their way into the ceremony room. And there's a bunch of like semi-naked people just like
it's like a massive harem
Yeah.
and it plays that that music. I think of it as the harem music.
Yeah, like dun, 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 or something. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like one of those upbeat, lively kind of tunes. Like I assume it's just instruments from that time, but it's more upbeat and like a lively feel.
Yeah, it's just a really filthy um one of the more filthy rooms in the
Yeah, that nobody commented on the
tower.
smell in that scene.
Yeah, you can imagine. Exactly. Yeah. I guess the depiction was meant to represent, like, be similar to something you would see in ancient Rome, you know, like that sort of debauchery. But then, yeah, in this scene, we get the pot with the body parts, the soup, the body part soup, basically.
And that's nasty looking green milk
Yeah.
soup.
But then, guess who's there? It's Osric's daughter and Thulsa Doom. So Osric's daughter is like sitting there like the same way slave Leia was sitting in front of Jabba the Hutt, basically.
Yeah.
Like if you put those two side by side, they're pretty similar. But then we get this cool Doom transformation. Yeah, I thought this example of special effects is really done really well.
No, it's really well done. That's
was really well done again.
Yeah, I remember like as a kid that was some freaky shit. Like transforming into a snake and it kind of grossed me out as a kid.
Yeah. As a kid, it was like it was fascinating, but also kind of disturbing at the same time.
Yeah, but I feel like it's like hats off to the special effects to make me feel that way as a kid.
Yeah, because it wasn't like over the top, like it wasn't dragged out, right? It was a slow scene, but the special effects itself wasn't too complex because you saw his face sort of extend a little bit, which you could tell was like a model or whatever. But
yeah, it's like deforming or stretching some kind of mask.
But it's very subtle, like it wasn't over. And then the snake head at the end of that clip is really well done. How it like looks into the camera. Yeah, I thought if you're a kid, I mean, that would be pretty terrifying. You know. And so Osric's daughter's there. She's like out of it, like she's like on some sort of drug. And then Valeria like has to cause a distraction, so she sets fire to some drapes. And then the three of them like move in for the kill, like they fight some guards. It's like it's mayhem basically in that room. And then Valeria like knocks out Osric's daughter, who hisses like a snake.
She's hissing. Oh, that's good.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. But another interesting aspect of the Valeria character is like she's very different to all the other women in that they encounter, like all the hippie women, like all like the cult women. Like she's very different to all of them. So it's sort of really good casting in terms of the actress. The way like she represented that character is really interesting as a distinction from all the other women in the film. Okay, so Conan then lifts up the soup bowl, this gigantic soup bowl, and like tosses it. And then Conan has to face the two main guys, so the axe guy and the hammer guy. So the axe guy and the hammer guy, they're gonna like show up in different points of the film from now on. They're like two of the main guys, two of the main like thugs for Thulsa Doom.
Were they with Thulsa Doom when they came to Conan's village as a kid? Yeah.
Yeah, they were, yeah. Um, and so the hammer guy, like he breaks his gigantic statue with his hammer, but then it falls on the other guy. And then they basically escape, the three. And they escape through like these caves and stuff. And then Valeria like takes out, I think, 2 or 3 guards by herself. She like jumps onto the wall and like does a slash, which is pretty cool. But then as they're riding away, they think they've escaped. Doom like comes out and like slowly takes this snake, like makes it like into an arrow.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. He just straightens the snake and it
Yeah,
stays
that was
stiff.
really good. Yeah, speaking
Just
of special
stiffens up
effects,
and
that was really good. Yeah. that was really interesting. And then she gets hit as they're like rounding the corner to escape. And then she's hurt really, really badly. And Valeria knows she's about to die. And so we get like the final scene between Conan and Valeria, the sort of this heartbreaking moment for Conan, sort of losing, the love of his life, basically. So Conan sort of takes off his necklace and puts her necklace on. And then the next day, we see Osric's daughter like strapped to this giant stone. Like she's basically there just so she can't escape. Because like Subutai and Conan know they're about to be pursued by Thulsa men once again. And so they sort of prepare for battle. Very similar to another movie where Arnold Schwarzenegger prepares for battle with a bunch of sharp traps, right?
Predator, yeah.
Yeah, it's sort of a precursor to Predator, including like the spike traps and stuff. So that was cool. It's always fun to see montages of battle preparation, whether it's someone like putting on gear, like in Commando, or if they're like creating traps and stuff. It sort of builds anticipation for what's to come. And so after that clip, the wizard comes in. He found like a bunch of weapons and armor. And then Conan like prays to Crom for revenge. And then at the end of his prayer, he's like, if you don't listen, then the hell with you. Which sort of reflects his relationship with Crom as well. Like he's not exactly, revering Crom in that way. It's like, you need to help me as well. Like I'll revere you, but you need to help. And so Conan and Subutai, like they've got spears when the horse riders attack. So they just use the length of the spears to gain an advantage against the horses. And then the main guy, he like rides through and then he's like chasing down Conan and then Conan like chops down his horse. And even the wizard like gets in on the battle, like he's on the ground. So he's like stabs this horse rider from behind. But then he like falls over and he can't get up. He's like a metal turtle because of his armor. And then next we sort of see the hammer guy, like he's walking around and he sees a helmet. And so he smashes the helmet, but it's a trap. So he sets off a trap and gets impaled by one of the spikes. And then the other big guy, he comes at Conan with a sword. And then when he comes at Conan, the ghost of Valeria appears and slashes the big guy in the face. And then that gives a chance for Conan to like cut him down. Like,
I thought she just blinds him with her radiant light, and he loses his vision.
Maybe that's what it is. Maybe I thought it was a slash, but it was just like a flash grenade.
Yeah, it's like a flashbang.
It's like a Call of Duty flash grenade, which like disorients you for at least 10 seconds, which is unfair. And so Thulsa Doom's there as well, but he's like away from the battle, and he like prepares another poison snake arrow. He tries to kill like Osric's daughter, but then the thief blocks it. And then the Thulsa Doom leaves while they're like jeering at him and like giving him crap. And then Conan does his victory pose again with the one broken sword. And so they won that battle, but they're not finished yet because they still need to take down Thulsa Doom one-on-one. And so I think later that night, they're back at the Snake Tower. There's a huge gathering again of hippies and cult members at the Snake Tower. Thulsa Doom's like standing there giving a speech, and then Conan's there. He's like sneaking around. And Doom's like talking about the Day of Doom. Like he's sort of getting everybody riled up because all this crap is happening at the Snake Tower. And then Conan like sneaks up to the top and like comes out from behind and like confronts Thulsa Doom. And then, like I said before, Thulsa Doom keeps trying to impress upon Conan that like Conan wouldn't be who he is without Thulsa Doom. So Thulsa Doom's like, but I'm basically your father. Like I'm a better father than your original father. And so you can't kill me. And so he's trying to use his like hypnosis and mind control to try to get Conan to not kill him. But like Conan even like looks down in doubt, but then he looks up again and it's like, no, like this is something I have to do.
My child, you have come to me, my son. For who now is your father if it is not me?
Yeah, I thought that decapitation at the end was really well done.
It was a messy decapitation. It wasn't clean.
Wasn't a one swing katana blade through the neck. Definitely not. Yeah, it's not the type of sword you would use to decapitate someone, that's for sure. It's like a hack sword.
Well, but I feel like he could have like cut him clean, like through his face, in his head. I feel.
Oh,
But
through here.
I feel like he went chop down and then chop down, like
Oh.
a V cut, like a V.
Like a tree. Like he's hacking a tree down. But then you saw at the end of that clip, he sort of holds the head up in front of everybody, and everybody's like freaked out. And then he like throws the head and it's like rolling down the stairs.
Yeah.
You just hear the sound of the skull like bouncing on the stairs. At
No,
the
that was a
end.
good sound effect.
Yeah, it's really good sound effect. Like kind of gross and disturbing, but pretty cool. So Conan's like, you know, he's basically like when you take down the leader of a cult like that, like everyone else sort of fades off into the distance, which is what happens. And so Conan drops his sword in front of everybody and then turns and leaves. And then everybody like turns around and starts dropping their flames, their torches into the water as they leave.
Conan, he sets the temple on fire before he leaves.
Yeah, that's right.
He
Yeah.
like sits and ponders, and then he like sets it on fire.
Yeah. And so Osric's daughter's there as well, but she seems to be back to normal again. Like she's not under mind control anymore.
Yeah, I think she stepped out after Thulsa Doom tried to shoot her with the arrow. Because I think she was like pleading for her or for him to save her,
Mm,
and then he just tried to kill her. So I think
yeah.
she snapped out of it like then already.
Yeah, so like you said, Conan like burns down the snake tail, but in the coolest way possible, because he gets a pot of fire, like a torch, like a brazier or something.
A brazier.
And then he does a spin and then tosses it up. Uh, and then burns down the tower. And then Osric's daughter like bows down to him. And then as dawn breaks, the tower is aflame. Like all of these scenes at the end are really good. Like in terms of the scope of the scene composition, the lighting and the colors, the contrast between the light and the dark. Also really interesting in terms of the cinematography and the direction.
Yeah, I think it's a suiting ending, and it has like the right feeling as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So a common thing with a lot of these films from the 80s and 90s is that you don't have like this extended bunch of scenes after the final moments of the film. So the bad guy gets defeated and then the film basically ends almost right away. That's something I've noticed in a lot of these movies. Like you beat the bad guy and then that's it, and like the movie's finished. But aside from that, we get like a prologue narration from the wizard describing Conan's life after that. And then eventually Conan becomes a king and has all these different adventures. And the final image is Conan on the throne. He's got this long grey beard and is sort of leaning over on the throne. It's a really cool image to finish the film. So pretty quick film, about 90 minutes, like movies used to be. Like there's like quiet, slow moments within the film, but they don't drag the film down. I think those are just part of like the style of the filmmaking, but also lends sort of creates the atmosphere that they're trying to create in terms of the fantasy and the mythology of the world of Conan. So that was Conan, another excellent trip back in time to the early 80s in terms of our film watching careers. So what was your final impressions of Conan?
It was I felt like it did remind me of how like originally how I watched it as we were kids. It brought back like fond memories.
Yeah.
And yeah, I feel like they should try to make a new adaptation or like a sequel to even like Arnold Schwarzenegger's Conan, maybe Conan the King, and have Arnie come back as an old king or something.
Yeah, definitely. You could definitely have
So
something.
it's because like Schwarzenegger, like Conan is probably the only Conan for me. So
yeah,
if anyone has to play Conan, then it would be nice to see Arnie do it one last time, I guess.
Yeah, I agree. And then you're gonna have like a Hemsworth. It's like the young warrior.
Oh, yeah, yeah, Hemsworth would he could make a good Conan.
Like either Hemsworth. Isn't there a Hemsworth in Extraction 2? Like a lot of people are talking about Extraction 2.
Yeah,
It's really
Chris Hemsworth is
an
in
old-fashioned action movie.
it.
But yeah, I think they're like two of the main action stars of the day. Like The Rock's getting a bit old. Statham might be a bit old, but yeah, these guys are still. But then people are still making like, what's that? Expendables 4 or something.
Yeah,
Like
he gets Stallone to play Conan. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah,
But,
they're still making Expendables.
well, that was Conan. Join us next time for something very, 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 very different. Jurassic Park from 1994. My favorite movie as a teen. Sort of an interesting. It'll be an interesting discussion next week because Jurassic Park is a very, very different film from what I remember. So join us then. I'll be interested to see what you think of Jurassic Park.
I'm looking forward to revisiting it. I haven't seen it for a long, long time.
Decades.
I must have watched it. A lot, like after it released to like VCR. I think it would have been VCR. I think maybe it's on DVD.
That's a good point.
I don't know if we had DVD then.
Yeah,
we watched the shit out of it. We watched a lot.
Yeah,
like the few years after it released, but since then I don't think I've watched it. So when did it come out?
94.
94? Yeah, 94. So,
yeah, so I would have been 15, 16. So.
It's been over 20 years since I've seen it last. So yeah, I'm excited to watch that one.
Okay,
yeah, it should be fun.
Okay, awesome. So thanks everyone for joining us. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I hate saying don't forget to like and subscribe. It's so corny, but instead of that, I'll say just watch the movies that we talk about, and like there's always something to get at. Like, anyway, I'm not going to keep going on about it, but yeah. Anyway, thanks for watching, and we'll see everyone next time. Wait. Let me do this first. Yeah, that's it. All right, thanks for watching, and I'll see everyone next time.
Laters.
Bye.
Cheers.
Laters.